We're live. It took a minute for the live sign to come up. So good to be here. It's been like I think 2 weeks. Sorry about that. I don't know what my problem is, but going to try to keep these more consistent. So it's Friday. That's a good thing. And here in Texas, the sun finally came out. I think it's not a cloud in the sky right now. But it's been raining for like months. It feels like it's been terrible, just gray and just water everywhere. But it's good. It's good to get some sun. So what are we going to do today? I'm not going to go super long on this one today, but going to talk about. I see 3 people have come on here, so welcome everyone. We're gonna Joel. Good to see you, buddy. We got to catch up, by the way. Hey, Jair. Good to see you guys. Yeah, doing well, man. Doing well. We got to catch up, so maybe we could chat later this afternoon. Talking to Joel. Anyway, so oftentimes I will talk about a situation that coming out of my consultancy, and that's what I'm going to do today. So I have a client. Had this client for a little over a year, and this client, is the chief equity partner. About a 65 percentile there, but very awesome person, super nice guy. But he has a personality type, as do we all, and we're going to go over just a couple things, and I'm going to kind of bring you into, what goes on in this particular brain type a little bit, and then how the people that work with this person are faring with the style. And we have a call every 2 weeks, and it's faithful call. We stick with this, and my job is to assist him, number one, in understanding how he thinks, how he processes, how he views the world, and how he views people. And then the goal is to help create an environment that flows with the type of brain this individual has. So that's really important for you to know. Every single person working in the world lives in a position of what I call potential talent. In other words, everybody has talent potential. We all have gifts. We all have talents. We all have natural abilities, whatever you want to call it. But how do we maximize those gifts and natural abilities so that they become our talents? You may be talented at drawing, but you're a sales guy. Or you may be talented at piano, but you're a wealth manager. And so how do you access talent for work? And the key is we look at your way of thinking and your behavioral portrait, and how well does that line up with the environment you're in? What is that environment? It's 3 things. What do you do? Who do you do it with? Who do you do it for? And that's pretty much the environment. And then, hey, Alan, and then within that environment, we've got, other people that you're not necessarily working with. So we call those people peers. You may have subordinates. So there's people that are working for you. So all these pieces create this environment that we're in. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to switch screen here, and we're going to look at a report. And this report is the behavior type of my client. Okay, so I'm down here in the corner. Hello. I don't know why I did that. I get myself going here. I don't want to do that. All right, so natural energy. So this individual we'll call a visionary. And the reason for that is all the active emotions. I say all, but there's only two of them. So the active emotions are anger and optimism. So you can see that anger and optimism are pretty peaked, meaning they're in play. So this brain, for doing anything in the world, is relying on anger and optimism to get it done. And so once you understand, these emotions in a real powerful way, then you can predict how things are likely going to play out. So the high anger emotion here causes this brain to be very decisive or very resolute. I might want to change that word to decisive. I've been thinking about that. What do you think, Jair? It's a very determined, decisive style. So that means there's not a lot of room for waiting around. So it's a very quick switch in the brain. So we call this a short fuse. Now, people that are short fused, yes, they can explode. We can call it that. But the reason that happens is because all the ingredients are always there and the fuse is always lit. It's just a matter of, letting go with the flintlock with your thumb, let's say, and letting that thing strike and then make that spark, and then everything's already in play for firing. And so some people's brains, if they want to fire a gun, somebody was telling me about, I don't want to get into all that, but if you've seen a movie like The Patriot, they're loading these musket rifles. And, they got this little horn of gunpowder. They get these little cloths and the little balls and the little tamping stick and, all these things. So before the gun is fired, they got to find the powder, get the right amount, pour it in there, put the cloth in there, put the ball in there, tamp it down, puts things away. Like, there's processes that take place before they can actually fire that weapon. So imagine, the patient brain people, they all have got muskets, and the angry people have machine guns. So I think you can see how that war is going to play out. So anyways, this person's also very optimistic. So you can see the optimistic emotion is high. So this is a very emotional person. So decisions are made emotionally. So if you think about making emotional decisions, you got to understand something about your emotions. Emotions ebb and flow with different passions and desires and feelings. It's a very fluid, visceral part of your brain. And so as these emotions ebb and flow, your decisions will ebb and flow with them. So this kind of a person can be all excited on Monday because they went to a conference and heard this new plan of action for accomplishing tasks or something like that. Gets the whole team together and this is what we're going to do from now on. We're going to begin this week, blah, blah, blah. And then as those emotions wane because they're getting further and further away from the conference that they were at, and, time has a way of, thanks, Jair. I was thinking the same thing. And so, as they get further away from that meeting, their emotions start switching to what's more current and relevant. So all of the decisions that I was all excited about that were attached to the ideas and the emotions and the feelings I had about that meeting, they're gone. So this is why these types can be very resolute on a Monday and then want to implement everything. And then once the entire team figures out a plan and a process for doing this and gets it all going, they change their mind and say, I decided I don't want to do it anymore. And maybe they've come up with some newfangled idea or concept, blah, right? It just keeps happening. And this is because this brain type, nothing's tied down in this mind. There's no tent stakes. It's like being in a hot air balloon. It's just wherever the strongest wind, that's where you're going to end up. And so when I say all that, I'm talking about your emotional framework. So emotions come and go, as you all know. But if you are an emotional decision maker, then you can make plans and decisions that will come and go. They will change as well. So these people are very difficult to keep up with if you're a non-aggressive style. Okay. Let's look at the patient. So you see the patient's a lower, so we've got impulsive over here. And so the less patience, the more impulsive. So if you're emotional, so higher and you're influencing optimistic emotion, and you're quick because you have high decisive drive, and you're impulsive on top of that, then you end up with two speeds, fast and faster, because having patience simply means your brain is hesitant. Your brain is hesitant because your brain has security needs, and so it's the need for security that causes people to be patient. It isn't like some virtuous blob coming from the ether. It means that their brain is safety oriented. It's a safety mechanism. It's what I call the annoying cricket. And the annoying cricket sits on, depending on whether you're right or left-handed, I'll say, sits on your right or your left shoulder, and it consistently whispers in your ear all day. So anytime you want to make a decision, the cricket speaks up and says, are you sure you want to make this decision? Are you sure this is a good idea? Are you sure that person's not going to get mad and bite your head off? Are you sure you got this right? Last time you got it wrong. On and on it goes. So it's always questioning the decisions you're trying to make. And so what happens is it catches you by surprise maybe, and you have to think through, okay, what do I think is going to happen here? And if you're unsure, you'll wait. And so, but if you're impulsive and the cricket's asleep or missing, then there's no voice speaking up on the shoulder that says, are you sure you want to tweet that? So it's obvious our current president has no crickets on the shoulder. And if you think that's exclusive to him, neither did former President Bill Clinton, because he picked up the phone and said, hey, Monica, would you come in here for a second? And the cricket was asleep. So the cricket didn't say, are you sure you want to do this here? So anyway, some people have crickets, some people don't. They can be beneficial and they can be in the way. It all depends on the circumstances. But understanding what's going on is really helpful. All right, let's look at the fear emotion here associated with my client here. And the fear emotion is low. So we go from very calculated or calculating to careless, which means I'm not calculating anything. And so, calculating, that's kind of the part of your brain where we solve math problems. So we might say Susie had 4 apples. She sold them all for 50 cents. How much money does she have? $2. So where did I do that? Well, in my brain, I did that, in the planning part of my brain. which is your frontal lobe, cortex area. So we're talking, up in this area. We call this the new brain. Animals don't do that. We do, because we have a neocortex. So now some of us don't really enter very often the part of our brain that solves math problems. And so if we're impulsive, or we could say impatient, then we're happy to skip that process, right? So our understanding and awareness of errors and mistakes is diminished. And so that's what we've got here. We've got impatient and we've got carelessness, which means you care less about things. We say that quickly, say, oh, they're so careless. And what we mean is there's less care in the processes they employ. People that are full of care, we say they're careful. Careful, right? Full of care. Why are they full of care? Is it because they care? No. It's because their brain likes to calculate. And therefore, because they're calculating, if you're solving a math problem and you're writing the problem out and you're thinking it through, you're going to find the errors if there are any. So these are the people that we say cross their T's and dot their I's and things of that sort. And it's because their brain enjoys that calculating piece. So this causes them to be really good at planning and orchestrating events, processes. And they're very dependent on the math being right. Okay, and what I mean by that. So let's say I'm giving a speech and I have teleprompters in front of me. Okay, we'll use, who will we use? We'll use former President Bill Clinton. Hey, John, so if he's giving a speech and the teleprompters go out, odds are good nobody's going to know that his speech is missing off the teleprompter because he'll wing it. And some people are really good at that. They actually do better. They perform better without those constraints that force them to follow something outside of themselves. Now, if former President Barack Obama was giving a speech and the teleprompter went out, we would know something's wrong, although we might not know what is wrong, but there would be a difference in the way that speech is going. Clinton's going to say, good, now I can say what I wanted to say and I don't have to follow that business. And he can off-the-cuff things very well. So can Senator Joe Biden. Obviously, we're sometimes a little afraid to give him a microphone, and this is why, because there are no plans, there's no planning, so there's carelessness in the process, so there's no awareness of errors and mistakes, and there's impatience. So we end up saying things we maybe later wish we hadn't said, right? So this is what happens. So what I want to do now is switch to the adapted piece here. And so let you get a look at this. So what we've got here is you can see the patients. So when I say adapted, this is what we call, we're measuring you in self-existence and we're measuring you in shared existence. So self-existence is you being responsible for you without any involvement from other human beings. So it's your own personal wants, needs, and desires apart from anybody else, what you would probably do if you were on a desert island kind of a thing. But when we're in shared existence, there are expectations that end up being placed on us by other people because we work with them and we do things together, and there's reliance upon one another. And so when he gets into the shared space at work, things change. So you can see the anger emotion drops back a little bit. And so he's still in a taking zone. Okay, so the taking zone is where our brains believe if we want something, we have to go get it. So we take things by force. So he's in that zone, not super intensely in that zone, but he is in the zone. And emotionally connected. Okay, so emotionally connected means there's a lot of needing to communicate. So we call this verbal aggression. And so this need to connect and to talk and tell stories. And then the patience it gets even less. So eager and impulsive. So there's an eagerness. What does that look like? It means it's like I can't wait my turn. That's what eagerness looks like when it's real intense like this. And then obviously independent and subversive. Okay, so subversive means we're always trying to look for, we're either overtly or covertly trying to work things out the way we want to do them, apart from standard protocols, current structures, rules and responsibilities that are expected and things of this sort. So they kind of jump off the cliff and build their wings on the way down. All right, so that's kind of the emotional makeup of this individual. What I want to bring into view here is some things that we talked about. I say we, but I mean me and the client on our phone call. And so this is feedback from team members. So what I have people do is create feed forward. And what feed forward is you go to the people you work closest with in your organization, and you ask them, if there was one thing that you could stop me from doing, what would that be? And we get feedback this way. And so he went to all the primary people that he works with that are dependent on him, and he's dependent on them every day in some form or fashion, and asked a couple questions. If there's one thing you could stop me from doing, what would it be? And then what do I need to do to be a leader that brings the best out of you? So those are the questions, and this is just a small piece of what came back because there's multiple people, and we don't have time for all that. So here's one. For meetings that aren't scheduled, get to the primary points up front rather than having to figure out the target of the meeting along the way. So what happens? So when this person calls a meeting, he doesn't know really what the meeting's about. He does, but he doesn't, because he didn't have time to plan it. Remember, this brain type doesn't plan. And so the problem is the two people he works with closest are planners. Okay? So you can see why this person is saying this. Let's get to the things up front. Why don't you know what we're here for? Why do we have to go on a discovery mission with you for an hour to figure out what's going on here? So, so this is what happens. Let's look at what else happens before we talk about some solutions here. If a case is complicated, organize in advance to know the primary points or issues needed to cover. So what's happening is nothing's done in advance, nothing's organized. Why? Because that's the part of your brain that solves math problems. He doesn't go there. Hey, Rebecca, good to see you, honey. And so there's no organization here. It's a disorganized ball of yarn in his brain. And he comes to this meeting all excited. This is going to be great. What a great day. And nothing's planned. Nothing's written down. The meeting begins to unfold. And this is what starts to happen. So they say this. So I prefer to have things in writing at the time of the meeting or in advance, or give me the file if needed. And so what happens is he doesn't want to write anything down. Why not? That's the part of your brain that solves math problems. Penmanship. This guy barely reads. I don't mean he can't read. He doesn't like to read. It takes too much time. You see? So everything's quick. Let's go. What are we doing? I don't know, but it'll be fun. Okay? So what is this all? It's a form of disrespect is what it is. It's like you're disrespecting your counterparts. If you understand how they're wired, you don't accommodate them at all. So what are we creating? Are we maximizing or diminishing their potential in the workplace based on their brain type? What are we doing? We're diminishing it. So guess what? Because of the environment, a planning brain, hey Pam, good to see you. A planning brain can't reach its potential if they're not given enough time or no one has a plan. And so what are we creating? Well, we're making sure this person doesn't, operate in talent. So we got a talented person that can't be talented because we're disrespecting the one thing that makes them so good at what they do. And so this is what I'm telling my client, and he's like, oh my God, what have I been doing? And I'm like, no, you're just being you. I get that. So what did I do? I created for him a template. It took me 5 minutes. So it says meeting, sort of like this does. Instead of impatience, it says meeting at the top, meeting agenda. And then it says subject of the meeting, the goal of the meeting, and I just leave a spot to put it in there. And then I've got 5 bullet points, like meeting objectives. So these are the primary objectives or the defining objectives that'll get us through the meeting. And I said, oh, hey, Mike. Yeah, I hope Mike's doing well, Pam. Thank you for that. And so this is so funny because I said, if you just make a template, I said, I could make it. And then he immediately says, will you make that for me? He doesn't even want to do that. Well, I made it for him, emailed it off. So he's got that now. Now everybody in the company that's going to do a meeting has to fill this out. It's now, so when you create defining objectives, this is what we call a thematic goal. So you have a goal. What's the goal? Like having better meetings. And I also recommended Cameron Harold's book, Meetings Suck, which he has, but he's never read it. This just keeps getting better. And so, it's so crazy. So how do we respect our peers? That's right, John. By understanding the brain types and being able to assist them in being their best selves, being great in a meeting. I had another company that was hiring a guy, and he was in his 3rd month of training, and the hiring manager, or that guy that was actually managing the person, was like, I think we're going to let this guy go. He's not going to make it. And this was a sales role, outside sales role. So they called me and said, we hired this person, and we don't think they're going to make it. And I said, well, why did you hire the person? Oh, he's super connected to everybody. It's amazing. Okay, great. He's a connector. Yeah, and we think that's going to be really powerful because of the people he knows. It's going to get us work, blah, blah, blah. Well, why are you letting him go? Well, he keeps forgetting his laptop. Okay. Keeps forgetting the laptop. What else? Oh, he's late. He's a little scattered. Okay, I get it. He's got attention deficit. Let's run a graph on the person and see what's going on, and then I'll talk with you. So I ran the profile, and I was right. Definitely a unconventional mind with zero patience, and very inducing. So that's a sign of attention deficit. So I called them back. And now this person didn't know if they're going to be staying on or not. They figured everything was okay. Another no. Why isn't any of this communicated? That was my question. But anyway, aside from that, got back to them and said, listen, this person you're right, super likely very connected. Remember, we just looked at that. Connected, that was that yellow optimistic line where the verbal aggression need to connect with people. So that was this graph, and it was like as high as it can go. So it was a real powerful connector. Now I'm going somewhere with this story, so you want to stick with it. So I said, you hired him because he's very connected, but you're firing him because he forgets things. I said, does that make sense to you? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, you hire him because he's very connected, but it doesn't look like you're even going to get a chance to see how connected he is because you're firing him for something you didn't hire him for. I want you to think about that for a minute. And they're like, okay. I said, since when does being forgetful mean you can't connect, create relationships, influence people, and they'll purchase a product? And they're listening. They said, okay, continue. So we had a conversation around it. And they said, well, what do you want us to do? And I said, what I'd like you to do is put him in the field for 90 days. See how well his connecting skills are. After all, that's why you hired him. I said, you've made a 3-month investment. Why don't we see if you can get a return on it? They did that. And in less, you ready? In less than 60 days, this guy made like one of the biggest sales the company ever had. And they called me and they were shocked. And they said, what happened? I said, you allowed him to function in his talent. You see, here's what's going on. They hired him and he's forgetful. Great, so am I, right? I'm forgetful. But does my forgetfulness interfere with my superpower? Well, it didn't interfere with his. What did it interfere with? His manager's brain, who's anal. He was annoyed by it. This guy's a clown. I don't want to work with him. And so what does that mean? It means nobody was focusing on this person's talent, bringing the talent out, capitalizing on this person's talent so that they can benefit from his talent. All they're doing is like, oh, this guy's annoying. He's all over the place. That don't work for me. This isn't about you. This is about the company and their sales quotas, I thought, right? How often do we lose great people because we're focused on all the wrong stuff? Imagine hiring everybody, and the people you hire, you were like on the hunt like a lion for what their talents are. And so that's what we should be doing as leaders and hiring managers. We're trying to find talent. So it's sort of like hiring a monkey, and then his job is like being underwater all day instead of picking bananas. Like, that's smart. That doesn't work, right? So we've got to figure this out. You got to hire the people that have the power and the drive and the energy. Every single human being has huge behavioral assets. But if you're hiring them for their assets, don't fire them for their liabilities. Because we've all got both. So what they were doing is they fired him for a liability, when they originally hired him for an asset. So after he was hired, they didn't go after the asset. They went after the liabilities and said, I don't like those, and we're going to fire him. Anyway, let me get back to my impatience document, and we'll wrap this up. I thought I would do 30 minutes. We're at 35, so I want to conclude this. So here's something somebody else said. Be reliable in accomplishing your weekly commitments. So back to my visionary leader. Reliability. What does that mean? Well, reliability just means consistency. Okay? Well, to the degree that your patience is low and to the degree that your fear emotion is low is the degree that you become more and more unreliable because you keep switching lanes and gears all the time. You can't stick with anything long enough because of the way you think. So I fixed this real quick. I said, okay, what I want you to do from now on, when you make a commitment to anyone in your organization, like you're committing to meeting with them, or you're committing to fulfilling an obligation, or committing to fill out forms that week, or whatever you're doing, because when we commit to something that involves another person, it means that that other individual is doing processes as well in order to be on that receiving end of the commitment, because it's always something we're doing together as a rule, especially in this organization. And so I said, what I want you to do is I want you to put a $100 deposit on every commitment you make. So you're like committing to buy the furniture. So, we put down a $100 deposit. If you go to a hotel, and this is what I told them, and I was just in Denver, and hey, Stuart, and I get, the company pays for my lodging and all that. But when I get there, they ask for my credit card, and I give it to them, and they say, this is for, sundries, and, in case you rob the beer fridge in the room, so we'll get our money. So I say, well, I'm not going to drink any of that. Well, I get you've committed to that, but I want a deposit on your commitment, right? So what do? They take some money, and then when you leave and they see the refrigerator still got stuff in it, they bounce your money back, right? That's how it works. We're all okay with that. But so I told him, I said, listen, when you make a verbal commitment to work with somebody to do this or that in this genre that you're working in, these things that you're doing, I want you to put a deposit on it. So if you don't show up for the meeting, it's non-refundable. And I said, so by the time you've maybe reached $5,000, you're going to stop because you now feel the pain of your non-committal mindset and disrespect of your people. And he said, oh, it'll be sooner than $5,000, I'll tell you that right now. See, what was I doing? I was touching him in an area where he has a huge passion. So on another profile we do, his economic standing in that profile, which is his need to get a return on his investment of time, energy, and talent and resources, is like an 85. It's really, really high. So he doesn't like losing, right? So this is what I did. I played against that part of his brain. So even though he's a non-committing brain type, which is fine, he has a greater desire not to lose. So, everybody can do anything in a behavioral lineup. It's just we don't like it, right? Because it works against our brain grain. So the day he loses $100 or $200 or $300, maybe in 1 week he's out $300. Trust me, he's going to show up, for the meeting. And the other thing I said, never over-promise and under-deliver. I said, that's what you do by default. You always over-promise because you're optimistic, and you always under-deliver because you're scatterbrained. So what I want you to do is under-promise and over-deliver, and then get everybody used to that so that they can feel like there's some reliability there, and then start moving further down that road. And that's my recommendation. Anyway, it was a great talk. We've got some great homework for him to do, and we're gonna see the outcomes, and I know they'll be great because they always are. We've been doing this for a long time. But anyway, that's just a little window into what we're doing over here at the Behavioral Resource Group. And somebody mentioned a book, and there is one, and it's mine. It's right here. And so this is the 4 people types and what drives them. And it's over 300 pages, I know, and it goes through all the different kinds of brain types and different things. It's a really fun book. It's still got 5 stars, so I'm really psyched about that. So if you're interested, you can find this on Amazon.com, The 4 People Types and What Drives Them. What's really fun about this book is you can just skip around through the book to just the chapters you want to read because it might deal with you or others you know. And it can be really, really fun. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is going to go up onto my YouTube channel so you can view it over and over again if you like this sort of thing. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.